You know, sometimes nature creates something so strange and so beautiful, it feels like it's been pulled right out of a storybook. And today, we're looking at a plant that's part flower and maybe, just maybe, part myth. So just take a look at this. This is Bulbophyllum Medusa, and wow, right? It's just this incredible explosion of delicate, white, thread-like strands. It's so beautiful, so intricate, it's almost ethereal. But its name, well, its name suggests something way, way more monstrous. And that's the big question, isn't it? Why on earth would anyone look at this absolutely gorgeous flower and think of Medusa? You know, the Gorgon from Greek mythology with the whole snates for hair thing? That is the mystery we are going to unravel right now. Okay, so to really get the whole Medusa connection, we first need to understand what this plant actually is. Let's peel back the layers a bit and get into its scientific identity. All right, here's the science part. This chart grounds our mythical-sounding plant in some hard facts. It's in the kingdom Plantae, of course, it's a plant. But the key things to notice here are its family, Orchidaceae, which confirms it is in fact an orchid, and its genus, Bulbophyllum, which happens to be one of the largest orchid groups in the entire world. But we can get even more specific. It's known as an epiphytic orchid. Now, that word might sound a little technical, but I promise it's the absolute key to understanding this plant's whole way of life. So what in the world is an epiphyte? Well, think of it like the perfect houseguest. It lives on another plant, usually a tree, just for physical support. It is not a parasite. It doesn't steal anything from its host. Instead, it gets all its moisture and nutrients from the air, from the rain, and from any little bits of debris that happen to collect around it. It's a true treetop dweller. Okay, so knowing it's an epiphyte, a plant that lives in trees, gives us a massive clue about where it comes from. So where in the world would you actually have to go to find one of these growing wild? Well, its home is in the warm, incredibly humid lowland and hill forests of Southeast Asia. You'd find it growing naturally in places like Thailand, Malaysia, and on the islands of Sumatra and Borneo. And it's pretty picky about where it sets up shop. It has to have those humid, shady conditions. It loves to grow on tree bark that stays moist, but also drains really well so its roots aren't just sitting in water. You'll typically find it clinging somewhere on the middle of a tree's trunk or on one of its big main branches. All right, so we know what it is and we know where it lives. Now comes the really fun part. Let's zoom in and take a closer look at the plant itself and see exactly what gives it that unforgettable appearance. Before we even get to the flower, the plant itself has a really interesting way of growing. It actually spreads across the tree bark, forming this kind of creeping mat. It does this with a thin stem called a rhizome, and all along that stem, it grows these small round bulbs called pseudobulbs. And then this is where the magic happens. The flower stalk, or the inflorescence, starts to emerge right from the base of one of those little bulbs. You can see it right here, just beginning its journey, getting ready to become that spectacular bloom we've been talking about. And here is the final form. This quote just nails it. The flower is made up of these long, filamentous lateral sepals. That's the scientific way of saying long, thread-like strands. And they radiate outwards, hanging down like a head of hair. And all of a sudden, that name, Medusa, starts to make perfect sense, doesn't it? What's so wild is that the flower's dramatic look is kind of an illusion. All of that show-stopping hair is made up of those lateral sepals. The other parts of the flower, like the actual petals, are super tiny in comparison, almost unnoticeable. All the drama comes from that incredible Medusa-like mane. Now, as you can imagine, a flower this unique has had a bit of an identity crisis in a scientific community over the years. Its name wasn't always set in stone. Yeah, let's hop in a time machine. Back in 1842, the famous botanist John Lindley first described it, and he put it in the genus Ceropetalum. But then, about 20 years later, a German orchid expert named Heinrich Reichenbach took a closer look and said, you know what, I think this actually belongs in the Bulbophyllum genus, and that's where it has stayed ever since. And that really brings us to our final thought. The Medusa orchid is just such a cool reminder that nature is full of these strange, wonderful things that can totally fire up our imagination. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other living myths are out there just waiting to be discovered in the world's forests?